I walked into my parents' house wearing the wedding dress I orchestrated with such care, a garment that embodied everything I'd envisioned for my future. Elegant, intimate, and powerful. But instead of quiet admiration or warm congratulations when I stepped inside, I was greeted by laughter blitzing out of the living room on the heels of the party playlist, and the vision of my sister Riley spinning under the massive chandelier in the living room, her arms outstretched as guests circled and cheered around her. She was positively aglow, even triumphant, as though she'd just won some contest that we couldn't see. And in a way she had. 3 weeks before, Elliot and I sat in a tiny cafe in Santa Fe, clutching mugs of steaming coffee while we scribbled our dreams for May 20th, the day we both agreed we'd like to be married. The outside air was frigid, but inside we were warm with the possibility of change. We decided to have an intimate ceremony at the Gallo Gallery, where we'd been on one of our first dates, where the walls of art seemed to resonate with the silent beauty of what we felt for each other. Its impact didn't lie in the spectacle. It resided in the meaning. About us. But then came the dinner. My parents had gotten everyone together under the false pretense of wanting to celebrate Riley's big news. I can still picture myself at the table with my fork halfway to my mouth, forcing a smile as she told me the news. She was engaged, to Jasper of all people, and their wedding date was May 20th. My stomach dropped. That was my date. I glanced at my mother in anticipation of some kind of soothing expression, but she instead clapped her hands together and grinned, and my father simply laughed and remarked how thrilling it was that both daughters were getting married so close together. The trembling of my hands, the way my breath caught in my throat, no one noticed. I got a call that night from the coordinator at the Gallo Gallery. Riley had reserved the venue, months after I'd made a tentative hold on it. They had rented it to her because she paid double deposit. I was driving and I stood there, phone against my ear, something pried open in my chest. This wasn't just bad timing. It was sabotage. I told Elliot everything that night. I anticipated frustration, perhaps anger. Instead, he listened. He had me held me while I cried and said in a soft, steady voice that no venue could measure the depth of our love. Yet when I told him I couldn't continue planning a wedding that seemed more like a competition than a celebration, he didn't fight me on this. He supported me. And then, just when I had all that uncertainty going, Elliot blindsided me. He drove me to a lone real estate office I had not been to before, a sweet surprise nestled in the hills with wild flowers and silence. He told me he owned it. Had it since before we were engaged even. It had been in his family, inherited over generations. As we roamed the grounds, the sun dipping behind the trees, I felt something change in me. I breathed easy for the first time in days. Shortly thereafter, Jasper phoned me. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to answer. He sounded tentative, almost apologetic. He needed to speak, he said, not as Riley's fiancé, but as a man whose life has been turned upside down by something bigger than him. He read to me the truth. Their engagement was a sham, a staged show designed to steal my thunder. Riley had seduced him with a plan. That wasn't love, that was malice. He passed me a flash drive with messages, emails, recordings, proof of just how calculated it all was. I sat alone in my room and scrolled through the evidence, feeling a strange blend of fury and clarity. Riley hadn't only stolen my date and my setting. She'd attempted to erase my moment completely. But now I had the truth. And with it I had power. I made up my mind to not allow her to define this chapter of my life. I would have the wedding for myself, not for her. Not the kind filled with excesses and empty gestures, but something that felt like it represented who I was, what I cared about, and who I loved. I contacted local vendors, artisans, friends who had offered to assist. I redesigned everything. Our guest list was put on a smaller, more intentional diet. The flowers unendangered and wild, the food homemade, the speeches earnest. And the venue. Elliot's estate was a ready-made set. Unspoiled, real ours. Word began to spread. Friends called wanting to know the details. A handful of reporters from local publications caught wind of a very different sort of wedding, one grounded in authenticity rather than opulence. In the meantime, Riley's life began to fall apart. Quietly, Jasper walked away from the frontage she'd built. And without him, the glitz dulled. Invitations went unopened. Vendors backed out. Rumors followed. Now here I am standing just days away from May 20th, feeling something I haven't felt in a long, long time: peace. Elliot stands next to me, powerful as ever. And the truth is coming to the forefront at last. I don't want or need to humiliate Riley or discredit her. I just have to be brighter than the lies she sought to drown me in. 'Cause this is my story. And I'm taking it back. May 20th dawned with a silence that seemed almost sacred. The sky was a soft pastel array of blush pink, lavender and gold drifting over the hills like a benediction. Barefoot, I stood on the stone terrace of Elliot's estate, in my robe, asking a hackney driver to wait while I watched the sun rise over the wildflower meadow below. The whiff of jasmine and soil freckled the air, fresh and innocent of the noise of the world. This was where it would go down. Not in some gallery with a crowd of people who didn't mean anything to him, not under anyone's shadow, but right here, where every single thing had been picked out with love and consideration. The house was already a hive of activity. My best friend Mara was arranging bouquets with the help of my cousin Elena, and Elliot's brother Daniel was tending to the string lights strung between the old oak trees. There was no hurry, no fevered energy, just calm purpose. They all understood here what this day meant. To me certainly, but also to those of us who actually believed in something that was real. I had not laid eyes on Riley since the night she realized that I knew the truth. She tried to get through to me before, a voicemail wet with sour indignation, something about how I had twisted everything. But I never called back. I didn't want to fight anymore. What I wanted was peace. And clarity. Joy. Later that afternoon, as I put on my wedding dress, the same one I designed before any of it had happened, I felt a peculiar sense of closure. Felt different now, they in fact did. Lighter. Stronger. Like I had grown into it. The cloth glinted softly, catching bits of sun shining through the window. I glanced in the mirror and didn't see only a bride. I witnessed someone who had fought for herself. Who had opted for real over show, for love over grievance. Elliot stood waiting for me under a wooden archway, cleverly woven with both ivy and peonies. When he saw me, he caught his breath, as he was always doing when I entered the room. He was in a plain navy suit, no tie, sleeves rolled up. He looked like himself. Grounded. Present. Ours was not a fairy tale, it was not a figment of our imagination. It took years of laughter, late-night talks, of dreams and hardships. That was enough. Our friends sat in mismatched chairs or on blankets laid across the grass. Some had driven across the country to attend these very in-person services. Still others lived a short drive away, down the road. They weren't names, not celebrities, not influencers. They were people who loved us, who knew us. And as we spoke our vows, ones etched from storm-hardened hearts, there wasn't a dry eye in the lot. I was the first to speak, my voice unsteady by the welling emotions I felt. I reminded him how he had taught me what a real man with true strength looks like, not in grandiose gestures, but in quiet steadfastness, in listening when I had to be heard, in holding space for me even when I didn't know what it was I needed. I thanked him for showing me that the biggest truth of love isn't about being bigger or louder than anyone else. It's about showing up over and over and choosing each other without hesitation. Then it was his turn. He smiled, his eyes twinkling, and said, "You are the most honest person I have ever known. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. You don't hide your pain. You face it. And you taught me to as well. I will be alongside you. Not in front of you, not behind you, beside you. Always." Felt like the air was changing when we kissed. A warmth ran through the roomful, as if we'd all been reminded of something we'd forgotten. That love needn't be perfect to be strong. That it needn't strive to be beautiful. Later, as we danced in our bare feet on the grass to laughter and music, I felt more light-hearted than I had in months. Stories, jokes, songs were carried in by people. We had homemade lasagna and homemade peach cobbler. Someone played guitar. Someone else recited a poem. No photographers hovered. A modest group of friends taking candid shots, moments instead of poses. And then, as the stars came out, I saw her. Riley lingered at the rear of the group, half obscured in the darkness of the garden path. She was alone. They are in black with their arms crossed, watching. Only for the briefest of moments did I hesitate, and then I strode towards her. She didn't run. She didn't speak. Just stared at me with something unreadable in her eyes. "I'm so glad you came," I said quietly. She swallowed. "I wasn't sure if I should." "Your family," I said. "This is your place too." There was a long silence. Then murmuring, "I didn't think you'd want me here." "I didn't," I admitted. "But I do now. Because I'm no longer allowing anger to define us." She nodded again, her expression becoming more gentle. Sorry. For everything. It wasn't an excuse. It wasn't an explanation. But it was a beginning. I let my hand fall to rest on her arm, where it nestled down. "Let's start over." She exhaled, as though she had been holding her breath for weeks. "Okay." We didn't talk long. We still had too much between us to repair in one night. But she stayed. He saw the firelight that played on the party's faces, heard the music, the laughter. Once or twice she even smiled. After everything wound down for the night, after the last guests had gone, Elliot and I sat together on the porch swing, snuggled under a blanket, watching the stars blink behind the ceiling of our world. "It is as if I am dreaming," I whispered. He kissed my temple. "No, this is real. And it's ours." I turned to him and leaned into him, and the weight of everything that had brought me to that very moment. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the self-discovery. But also the strength, the resilience, the love. None of it, in the end, had gotten in the way of what counted. If anything, it had only made it stronger. Because sometimes in life, it doesn't unleash storms to destroy you, but rather to remind you just how deeply you can feel pleasure. And mine was far deeper than I had ever dreamed.